too much effort to go outside. But I'm glad Joe likes, like I said, he'll get used to getting up early. Like you said, what time does he get home? Around 4 or 5?
3 or 4.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all. And my son works for the same company, so they got these aftershock headset, talk each other's heads off. I'm like, y'all never shut up, do you? And they said, no. So,
Well, that's good. Like you said, just the stress of, I can't imagine driving 12.
oh, he loves to drive. I'm serious.
It's a man thing.
It is.
No, it must be, because I miss that part. I mean, I don't mind driving after a while. It'd be nice somebody's chauffeur would be around and say, hey, we've met your destination, sir.
I'm a pretty good driver too, and long distance, I can drive for about 4 hours and I have to get out, but he can go 10 hours, seriously, I've seen him do it.
I have to tell you a funny story. This lady was telling me she was taking care of this retired long haul trucker. And he wouldn't urinate. She finally, when I said, look, she said, if you don't urinate within an hour, she said, we're going to have to straight cap you. It's the doctor's order. He said, ma'am, I'm a long haul trucker. He said, I'm used to driving 10 to 12 hours without stopping to pee.
So, I'm a camel.
Yeah, she said, oh, okay. She said, I learned something. She said, if you need me to pee, I said, if you step out the room, I'll use the urinal.
Yeah.
She said, she said, I'm a long haul trucker. With a long haul trucker, she said, I'm used to just holding my,
Yeah.
until I absolutely positively had to stop and go.
Yeah.
And she said, I never, because she said, we thought something was wrong with him, like he had some urine retention going on. And he said, no, just
Being normal.
being normal for me. I'm on the road 12 hours a day.
Uh-huh.
Time is money, money's time.
Every mile.
He said, so it was like, and he said, I usually did what they call urgent express. So it was like, they expected there at this time, I'd get up and I said, well, I can understand that. It's like you said, stopping in an emergency. I've got to go. I can't, my bladder is extended.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta get a new clock. That one's fiddled. I don't know what happened to it. It just decided not to work with me. But things just don't last like they used to.
No, they don't.
Knock on wood, my washing machine's pretty old, but it's still kicking, so I should talk about it. You might hear me.
Maytag, is it a Maytag?
Yeah.
Yeah, Maytags, they'll last 30 to 40 years.
Yeah. I'll wash a lot of clothes.
Like you said, a Maytag is a good one. Whirlpool, I mean, belts will burn out, of course, or snap, but the motors and the,
Kenmore used to be the best.
yeah, Kim,
Back in the day. But I don't even think Sears is around anymore.
I never understand why Sears went out of business.
Bad management, I imagine.
I mean, you can go,
Kmart too. They got absorbed.
yeah,
I never did like their clothes though. They had so many tacky looking clothes.
one thing I liked about Sears, Mom, was they,
I like their tools.
yeah, the
Yeah.
tools. You could go in there and say you had a crack in the tools,
Appliances.
appliances, and something broke. They look at it and say, yep, that's ours, go pick the new one out.
I hope that's hot enough for him.
Sport didn't go.
Ooh, what is it, Mom? Oh, yeah.
His hot, Joe's hot sauce. He
I
should
don't
bring
know why
it back.
anybody does that to themselves.
It said fiery hot, so I got it.
Oh, I like Cookie. He's cute.
Yeah, you should go. Did they take you to the Cattleman's? I forgot where it is, Mom. The Cattleman thing is Cattleman's restaurant?
Oh, where the livestock.
Livestock?
Yeah.
There's a little store and that's all they sell is hot sauce.
Oh. Yeah.
It's like a restaurant and then they got where the old cattle thing where they turned them into little
Mm-hmm.
stores, which I think is pretty cool. And there's one little store, I don't know if it's still there, that's all they do is sell hot sauce.
Mhm.
And they even had come on a warning, said this stuff is, take it or buy it at your own risk.
Yeah. We went to Waco and the water in Waco is horrible. And I said, so wonder that guy went crazy down here with the water.
Oh, yeah.
Drank too much of the Waco
It
water.
is bad. We were at the Ranger Texas Ranger Museum, and I got me a drink out of the water fountain. I'm like, I don't know if I want to spit it or swallow it. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. And the guy said, yeah, we have bad water. I said,
Was it real sulfury tasting or just?
oh, terrible. It did taste like sulfur. Other stuff I tasted, it's just bad. So we had the bright idea of getting like soda the next time we went out. I said, where did we get the ice from? From their nasty water.
Yeah, your water, now you got nasty coke with ice, nasty ice.
Yeah, as it melts, it gets stronger and stronger. I said, bring your own bottle or something. Bring a soda from the store.
Yeah, can or a plastic bottle, so.
Mm,
I know I down in Mexico, and that's all I drank was just bottled water.
yeah. Yeah, they say you get sick.
Well, I guess their standards for clean water are a little lax.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this was even a nice hotel I was staying at, so I still said, no, I'll drink a bottle of water.
And yeah, to be on the safe side.
Be on the safe side.
Today I fell off my steps. I missed one, and I fell on my hip. And I was like, well, at least it was bad. I think I'm okay. I just,
If it, doesn't get better, you'll have an X-ray.
no, it ain't that kind of hurt.
It ain't that.
Hey, Mr. Joe, how you doing?
Hey, Mr. Joe with the red shirt on.
Hurt my pride.
Yeah, I know.
I just laid there, and I'm like, my dog could see me through the window, and I said, yeah, you wouldn't even come and help me if you were out here, so why are you barking at me? My dogs, they'll see me flat out, and they're like, what are you doing out there? Hey, you want some coffee?
I always want coffee.
You do? Okay. I got plenty of coffee.
Appreciate it, thank you.
All right.
Well, what's the news on the Ukraine? I haven't followed it much, Mr. Joe. Have they burnt the place down yet or what?
Yes. That one major city fell. Today, that's the only one that's fell so far.
Well, my thing, what's in the Ukraine that anybody want?
So,
What's in the Ukraine that anybody would want?
I've been wondering that myself.
Now, I'm a history buff, and during World War II, the Ukraine were happy the Germans were there because Stalin had starved them to death, and the ones who didn't starve to death, he put them in, labor camps.
Yeah.
And they said they were welcoming the Germans, and I said they didn't get it, that they were trading taskmasters.
Yeah.
Then 4 years later, they were hooping and hollering the Russians were coming back.
Thank you for the card.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate yours.
That's about all Germany's gonna do is put work on or something.
I'm just trying to figure out what's going on in Ukraine that everybody needs to get all upset about.
Well,
I just hope they don't drag us into it.
Melted down nuclear plants there, Chernobyl.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to take a tour of Chernobyl while I'm wearing my radioactive suit.
Yeah, you would have to.
Yeah. No, I think they've got it quarantined, what, for 50 miles or 100 miles?
Really?
Yeah.
That much?
I watch a lot of documentaries, and they're like, they sent us some biologists in there back in 2015 or something, and some of the wildlife was starting to come back, the birds, the mammals, but they're still having all kind of funky mutations.
All stills in the United States.
Yeah, that Valdez,
Valdez,
yeah,
all
that
stills.
was a bad one.
Yeah, but it's like, they're talking about all the mutations, like the wolves, there's a wolf population in there, like, you know, tumors, that some of them, they found them had huge tumors in them, you know, they're dead. You know, I mean, just,
Yeah,
I think they
and
had,
what it does to the animals.
Yeah, well,
and
and
what it does
trees.
to the people.
yeah, well, they got, I think, a 50-mile, you know, and they pretty
I
much
like
keep,
the atom bomb did or the Hiroshima people have, and all that.
Yeah, that's true.
no, it's just funny. It's like, why would you even go to Chernobyl, you know, like, nobody will ever be able to live there anymore, maybe 100 years from now.
Yeah, it is pretty much all.
You know, and then like still the cancer rate is just phenomenal in the population, you know, even 100 miles away.
Well, that one on Long Island, New York, the same thing.
I just feel sorry for the kids.
Oh, yeah, they said the cancer rate in children is just like 70 or 80%, you know, that's sad to me.
It's real cold over there, real freezing. Most of them are outside.
I kind of suspect that the Russians might, be fit and go to Ukraine and say, hey, I'll fight for y'all. That would work. Them countries are always in some kind of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, Ukraine, Afghanistan.
Howdy.
Hey, I wouldn't want to live there, though.
No, me either.
Don't give me any place that doesn't get over.
Dude, you're the history buff. What's so important about the Ukraine?
I've been trying to figure that out.
Thank you.
There was a big Nazi. These very atrocities there against the Jews.
Well, no, if you go back to pre-World War II, I have a friend who's Ukrainian, you know, his mother's from Ukraine, and he hates the Russians. I said, God, you're not living in Russia. He said, I still hate the Russians. I said, okay, it's cool, dog. I get it.
It went the other way. Well, the thing was, Ukraine, when World War I ended, the Tsar was murdered
Yeah,
near the end,
Ferdinand, not Ferdinand,
Nicholas
Nicholas, yeah.
II. When he was murdered, or when he was taken out of power, then he was murdered. Famous Vicky. Ukraine was a happy part of Russia. Well, Lenin immediately sued for peace. And then he gave, among other things, the Ukraine to Germany to end the war, to surrender, basically.
Right, yeah, oh yeah, the Russians took a beating after World War II. I mean, they said here,
Well,
we just, you know, it's not like me trying to sell you something. It's like, if I buy this, would you just go away?
and that's what happened. And then when the war ended in Germany against Lenin's predictions lost, then the Ukrainians were no longer happy to be a part of the Soviet Union. They were a part of Russia and relatively thrilled about it. But then the guy that betrayed them, took power. And so when Hitler came 20 years later, a little bit more than 20 years later, under Stalin, they didn't know who Hitler was, but they said they welcomed him as
I mean, you know, Stalin, starved half of them and the other half went to concentration camps. I mean, Ukraine's kind of in that.
They really didn't want to be a part of the Soviet Union.
Right, so they welcomed the Germans.
Because the Allies in the Treaty of Versailles gave them back to Ukraine. And they said, no, don't give us back, we're fine where we're at. And anyway, Russia took them back during the Soviet Union and didn't treat them very well. When Hitler came, they welcomed them. I mean,
Yeah.
when the tanks came, they thought it was great, we were liberators.
Right, they're throwing the Russian yoke off on us.
Because the Russians had already betrayed them. And then the same people who betrayed them were now in charge of them. They didn't do well under Lenin, and they did not do well under Stalin either.
Well, in the past, I was watching the news, they said that Russia came in and took all Ukraine's food.
Mhm.
And they ended up having to cannibalize each other, and
Mhm.
a lot of people died of malnutrition.
Yeah, Russia didn't want it to begin with, and then, you know, they didn't want Ukraine to begin with, they gave them away, then under the Soviet Union, and then they treated them badly every year. They were so thrilled to break away, and they're not going back.
Not
now-
willingly, go ahead.
But I told some of you that the email or the Facebook post that I read from Molly Davido said that when she and Mike were married in '68, every night they went and filled up the car. And they always asked him why. I said, well, because if Russia attacks in the night, we have enough gas to get out of here. Then since '68 until now, the Russians have not been moving this way, and now they finally are. She said, me and my daughter went and filled up the car last night. Hey, Miss Sandy.
Yeah, the train got me.
That's okay. It happens all the time. But so far as what the Ukraine has now, I really do not understand why Russia wants it.
I mean, it was in the Soviet bloc for years and years and years and years.
Right.
I mean, after World War II, basically, it was just a bumper state.
Mhm. And then, well, they had more beyond with Poland, Czechoslovakia, and
Romania.
Hungary. But then when all that fell, the problem that Putin is going to have is what he didn't want, even if he gets the Ukraine, it's going to be worse. He did not want to share a border with a NATO state. Well, he will if he winds up with the Ukraine. I don't know why he wants it. They don't really have anything there that's worth taking.
That's just like I asked a friend of mine who worked for the State Department, and I said, what if in Afghanistan could we need a difference other than fighting the Taliban, which,
Mhm.
and he said something smart like, we're gonna bomb them back to the Stone Age. I said, they already live in the Stone Age, they live in mud huts.
They always did. I mean,
Yeah, that's just part of their culture.
our war in Afghanistan probably raised the standard of living. And Russia's war in Afghanistan. probably
Yeah, well, that's what I said, the British got kicked out, the Russians got kicked out. I said, let me think, two-time losers, two empires. I said, gee, we didn't learn anything?
Just the terrain you can't. You can go so far. Like Russia, you can only go so far. And unless you're willing to go all out aerial, there's no way you can
Yeah,
move
it's too
troops.
vast.
There's no way you can move troops. It doesn't work. And right now, well, we were looking at today during the meeting, the ruble was worth around 4 cents not too long ago. Quite a bit before this happened, though.
What's it worth now, 2 pennies?
It's worth now
One,
0.92 of a penny.
I think I'm in the business of rubles.
So that's all of a sudden, 75% of your currency is gone. I mean, that's like somebody coming in here, taking all the cash out of your wallet and your bank account and everything and giving you back a quarter for every dollar.
well, that's why I brought up, you might wanna take cash out because our system could break down.
Well, theirs has, and there are lines at ATMs. I doubt they are now because they better just leave it
The
there and wait
banks
till
are
it comes
like-
back. But
The banks are not even opening up because they
No.
don't want to get rushed.
there were lines hours long at ATMs, and they were running out. And they were trying to take what they had, and before they completely devalued, to change it to euros or to American dollars. It's sad what the people in Russia are going through too right now. I mean, people in Russia are in a mess. Maersk just joined the companies that will not, at least for now, trade in Russia. Well, Russia's making things that can't leave the country, so there's no money. And they need things that can't get in the country now. Maersk and all these other huge, big transport companies are going to, and there was I can't remember what the boat was, I think it might have been Turkish. the Russians demanded to be a Russian boat demanded to be refueled. I said, we will not refuel you.
You're talking about Russian trawler or Russian,
Russian warship, I think. So we will not refuel you. They said, well, what do we do? We have no gas. I said, well, you might want to row.
I got some more here, but.
But you're not gonna row one of those things.
Oh, I know that, but it's just, I
But
don't
they just said, no, it's not happening. And, you know, Apple is not dealing with them,
Last I
Yes.
heard though, Coke was still going strong.
Of course,
of course,
give it up to Coke.
Georgia.
Yep.
If I was gonna ever boycott anybody, it would be Coke.
Yep.
Honestly,
Well, Delta's not far behind.
What you call it, Coke?
Delta.
Delta.
Well,
They
that's,
pretty woke.
they came out in
Yeah.
the speech last night. We get shut American airspace to all Russian flights now. They're not coming in, they're not coming out. No Russian flights anymore.
No wonder what's wrong with Coke. Why would you boycott Coke?
Because they tried to teach you to not be so white.
Well, they send them to classes.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not into politics. It's like, you see the Hershey commercial now?
Well, that's not their politics, that's Coke's politics.
Coke Zero is my lifeline.
I know, I like caffeine.
I can't do caffeine because of my kidneys, and I can't do,
I know, that's what
Sugar.
I've happened to.
so Coke Zero is my lifeline right now, and, like
I
I said,
love water.
Wait, Coke Zero has a caffeine free?
Coke Zero is caffeine free.
Yeah, it was caffeine.
We got caffeine and
Sugar.
I didn't
zero
know.
sugar.
I thought it was the same.
No, there's any caffeine in it, and I don't want it. I'm excited what it is.
No.
I just don't understand what's going on in the world right now. I'm one of those people that if something happens, I want to know why. And I don't understand why
The media.
that Russia is willing to cripple itself for nothing. There's nothing there. I mean, it's just, why would you want to occupy Chernobyl?
Earlier, I heard on the radio that when Obama was in, and they were talking about his dog, and Putin was saying that he had a very unmanly dog, that he had these killer attack dogs, Putin does. So he was judging Obama by his wussy dog.
Yeah.
There's some fact there.
Well, he plays mind games.
I like that dog a lot.
Have a wussy dog with a big gun.
Oh, I don't know.
It's a big old goofy water dog.
Oh, a Labrador.
No, it's some kind of.
I thought it was a cocker
water
spaniel.
dog. Yeah, it's some kind of water dog, I thought. Yeah, it was fun.
No, I
Anyway, it's a
think
big old
it's
goofy looking dog.
Yeah.
And the goofiest was that one Reagan had that drug Nancy around the White House lawn. That she couldn't stand it, buddy had to get able. Also, Ukraine, when it became free from Soviet Union and from Russia, they became for a short time the world's third largest nuclear power. Because they wound up with all the missiles of Russia. And I think the United States had something to do with it. So, Russia and the Ukraine, they got together and they made an agreement that Russia could come get its missiles, but they had to promise never to invade the Ukraine.
Of course, they got this all in writing, right?
I was gonna say, somebody broke
Well, I
the
mean-
bones.
You don't really have to. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they did, but you don't really have to, because
Yeah,
now
I say that to
everybody knows. I mean,
Hitler signed a pact with somebody, right, 38 or something, and his minister, I forgot who, his second, compared to our Secretary of State, said, why did you sign that with these people? He said, I thought a lot of things. I mean, basically he told him, he said, yeah, I signed it, so what? What's your point? I'm not gonna honor it, but I signed it.
well, that's what really killed him in the end, was he enraged Stalin by ignoring the non-aggression pact and rolling into Russia.
You will hear a trivia about Stalin, I know we got to start. He had gone to theology, he was in theology school. I think Greek Orthodox, and that's where he got a lot of his strange ideas, and because his mother was so proud that but he wasn't. I don't know if he got kicked out or he left on his own, but when he left, he just turned into a straight up thug.
Well, he certainly turned into that.
But it was funny because he said his mother was so proud that her son was, studying to be a priest.
Very much do this work for us.
Sure. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to come here to worship and listen to the word. We ask you to bless this congregation and all who are here. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Jesus has asked the disciples, who do you think I am? Peter said, you're the Christ, Son of the living God. He gives that famous Jesus kingdom speech. You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. And then, a little bit later, he's telling them that it's necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the hands of Jews, and that he was to be killed and raised the third day. And Peter's just shocked by this. He says, God forbid, Lord, this shall never happen to you. And I don't think he's calling Peter Satan. Just get thee behind me, Satan, you're stumbling block to me. You're not setting your mind on God's purpose for man's. Well, it then goes into this in verse 24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Whoever wants to save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what good will it do a person if he gains the whole world but forfeits his soul? Or what will a person give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels and will repay every person according to his deeds. This is one, and that's chilling enough. In verse 28, it says, truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man in his kingdom. Which are two different events, but wow.
I mean, when he said that, isn't it, when he raises us, he's talking about being raised again.
I would think about the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I think all of that is fulfilled by Acts 2. Probably not just there, but by Acts 2, coming in his kingdom. Now look at what he says. Look at what the thing is in part of verse 24. He is speaking completely against everything the world teaches. If you want to come after me, you have to deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. If you want to save your life, you're going to lose it. Whoever loses life for my sake will find it. Now, is he talking about physical life? I think yes, but I think that's just because of what he is actually talking about. It's not run out, and oddly enough,
Don't make a martyr out of yourself.
yeah, but this was, the early church kind of misunderstood this. I can't brought it up with parental silence. All right, the early church sort of understood this as something that I think people do today. If you lose your physical life for the cause of Christ, that's a sure ticket into heaven. I don't know who the guy was. He was one of the early, what's called the Apostolic Fathers. But this is what he wanted to do. He lived during the age of Roman persecution. And he would constantly run out or want to run out and give himself up as a Christian to the Romans so that he would be killed. And this would be a sure ticket to heaven. And he did not, because on the days the Roman soldiers came for that purpose, his mother would hide all of his clothes. He wanted to be a martyr, but I guess he didn't want to be a martyr naked.
Mm-hmm.
But that was what happened. I mean, and this was an early thing. And if you are a martyr, then you're going to go into heaven. I think those people probably did, but not because of that. I think that what they did that made them a martyr was what got them into heaven. Now, if you lose your life for my sake, you shall find it. If you want to save your life, you will lose it. I'm not sure that this is your physical death completely. I think certainly physical death comes upon some people because of it. When I read this, I think of people like Tom, who do this every day. You know, in my presentation PowerPoint, I took a picture so that I would always remember. I was in Daytona at Thanksgiving time in a hotel. Mom and Dad were over at my aunt's house, and I was in the motel for a lot of reasons. One reason is my aunt keeps her house at like 85 year round, and where we would have to sleep is upstairs, which makes it 95.
Probably 100.
But anyway, I stayed in a motel, and I got in a room that looked out over the ocean. I got a picture of the sun coming up. And the reason that I took that picture is it reminds me in that, and people say, well, what has this to do? They don't, well, Tom had just called me and got me out of bed, because I'm usually not around to see the sunrise outside, ready, but they were rioting, they were killing people, and this was back when there was this was a good while ago, back when a lot of the Nigerian extremists wanted to be a part of Al-Qaeda. And so they were doing things, kind of a sloppy way, but they were rioting and killing and all Christians and things like that. Well, Tom had to take his wife and son to the police barracks. But they would only take women and children. He and some of the teachers of the school were hiding in the woods, the jungle outside the town, so that they could save their lives until the end. Tom has been offered many occasions to leave northern Nigeria, where it is dangerous, and he refuses to. He stays there. I think that's what he's doing. He's giving up a life of maybe perhaps ease and safety, at least physically, so that he can stay in, preach the gospel, and putting himself in harm's way. I think of the doctor, can't remember his name, African Children's Hospital in Nigeria as well. There was a armed vehicle that came in one night in the hospital, and he's from here, I think he's from Tennessee. And they came in, they shot the security guard, whose name was of all things America. And they took him, they shot him in the hand, kind of incidental fire, and they took the surgeon with them and kidnapped him and demanded a ransom. Well, the people there didn't have it, and the people back home in Tennessee probably could have found it, but were able to. And it became too much trouble, and the kidnapper just let him go after several days. But that could have easily been, he didn't know at the time, his livelihood, because he was a surgeon. He was shot in the hand, but after several reconstructive surgeries, he was better back home in Tennessee. But then, he went back, and he still keeps going back to African Christian Hospital. It's an organization based in Searcy, Arkansas, but they've established several clinics throughout the country, especially in the north, where the medical care is very sparse, especially for Christians. That's the kind of thing that I'm thinking. These people are still alive, but they have given up their life for the cause of Christ.
So it's being centralized?
Self-sacrificial.
Well, but what you're mentioning is not me.
Hmm?
I said what you're mentioning though is not me. So,
Have you ever given up anything?
not to that extent.
It doesn't have
My
to be.
life, that's why I say, it's not being that you have to do something monumental
No.
or heroic
But what you have to do,
but it is a different life.
it is, what you have to do is set aside what is your life
Right.
and live what God does want you to do. And it's just that not to that extent. The only difference you're talking about in things that we do here and things that they do there is a difference of physical degree. And I don't think that's important at all. And if we are called to do that, then we do. We don't happen to be called to do that right now because it doesn't exist here in this country, but we still can do other things. Do we choose, like in the thing I challenged you about, I don't mean challenge, but I made you aware of Sunday morning. The church of Sokopola is taking in refugees from Ukraine, Christian refugees. What do we do about it? Do we make a major purchase right now that we don't have to really do, or do we set aside some for others right now? Do we help the cause of Christ, or do we help our own cause? Do we, I mean, it can be as easy as anything else. Do we, get extra hours of sleep instead of going to church service? Or extra 2 hours? You know, what do we pick? What gets chosen? People say, well, that's nothing like hiding in the woods or, you know, getting kidnapped. It very much is. Because the same reason exists behind all of those actions. And that's what it is. Give up kind of what we talk about here a lot. Stop living for self and start living for Christ. Let Christ lead you instead of what you want.
Well, professions like police officers and firemen and soldiers, they do exactly that. They're willing to give up their life to save someone else.
Right. I guess the biggest example for that would be Secret Service agents who are assigned to protect the president.
Throw themselves in front of the bull.
Throw themselves in front of the bullet. I mean, folks, there's a reason I'm not a Secret Service agent. I mean, several of them, but I'm not going to do that. I can promise you. The kids ask me what I thought about Biden, and they always ask what I thought about Trump, and they ask me what I thought about Obama. I said, quite frankly, I think about every one of those individuals as people who have a job that's very hard that I wouldn't want, and I respect them for taking it, but as a common American citizen, every president I can remember has done things that I thought were pretty good, and have done things I thought were mistakes. Every single one. And then you have the dyed-in-the-wool political parties on both sides that say, oh, well, so-and-so, they couldn't have ever done anything wrong. They did. They made mistakes. You know, they all did. I don't think any one of those guys, and I respected every one of them, because they are President of the United States, and that job is a hard, thankless job.
And they all turn gray in 40 years.
They're about 40 years older, you know.
All the hair is turned gray every time.
And
Except Reagan.
people ask me, just to show you how apolitical I am, people ask me, well, who was the favorite president you ever had since you've been alive? And my response is probably it's Jimmy Carter. I said, number one, he was the least effective president probably that we've had, at least in recent history, but the most effective ex-president we've ever had. And he has to me, the sterling achievement of remaining a very good, honest man with quite a bit of integrity throughout the whole thing. You know, I admired the fact that he taught a Bible class at his church in Washington, D.C., and he still does. In his 90s, I mean, I doubt there's much. Jimmy Carter. He's just a good man that got the probably the least effective president I can ever remember, but one of the best people that I can ever remember. And that's mine. You know, I wouldn't care what political party he's from, or even if he had none. Because I've seen he's a Democrat, and I've seen him stand up to Democrats and say that's just not right. You know? And whether or not I agree with it about that, I at least admire the way that he stands up to them. But, you know, people say you hated Trump. I didn't hate Trump. He did some good things. There's some things I didn't agree with. And I'm not in love with Biden. He's done some good things even in his year, but he's done some things that
That's the funny thing
wrong
about it.
too.
That's the funny thing about it. If you support one or the other, oh, you love them. It's like, no.
Mhm.
Just like with Trump, you know, he said go get the shot. I didn't listen to him either. So,
No, but he actually got his before I got mine, so I guess I can't say he was the reason.
yeah,
But honestly, you give up the things that everybody else seems to hold through this life.
go out your way.
Yeah.
Take personal loss for the greater good.
You know, when the church, when the church, God's people, the congregation, whatever needs, we may not be able to supply, but at least we can do without something to help. I can remember when we used to, well, I think, it's not the United Way. Anyway, somebody says, oh, it's World Wildlife Fund, said for the cost of a cup of coffee every single day, you could save. I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. You know, you could save so many animals or something like that. But for the cost of, you know, when you do stuff, you gotta understand to live as a Christian, you give up. Because it is God's way and not our way that we're looking at. And I think because we don't do this, I think the religious world has lost its way. I think the religious world today, what we commonly term as Christianity, has lost its way. Because I almost hear this read by preachers, and then they'll immediately say, but it doesn't really mean it. You don't have to give up all the things. You can still, folks, take up your cross and follow me. It's pretty plain how much of our lives we have to give up. And what we
You
want.
have to deny yourself.
And what we don't point out is this, though, is that if you will live this way, so contrary to everything that the world will tell us, if you will live this way, is live for a greater purpose, is live for a greater good, you will have a life that's worth living, and you will be happier than anyone else would ever. Jesus said, I came that they may have life, and life more abundantly. You know, what we don't ever say is, yes, you do have to give these things up. And if we leave it there, then we look around at Christians, they have to be miserable, you know?
Well, the
You don't
abundant
get so,
could
if you give some things up, you just don't get so entangled in the world that you lose your way.
Right. But, you know, you give everything else, you give everything up. But if you do so and live for God, He will take care of you. And you will live life and life more abundantly. You will have a better life than anyone else only from doing this, but you got to take the first step.
well, that could be in form of happiness, good health, not always financial.
Right.
Um,
Well, it's rarely financial, but I mean, you're gonna have
A
enough,
long life.
you're gonna have enough to get by financially or physically, but yeah, you know, or even the church. If the church is doing nothing, what's the point in having it? Why not make ourselves so valuable to God that He can't dare let us die, you know? That's what I told somebody, someone, they looked at me like I was crazy, but I did, I told somebody in the congregation that. They said, we're gonna die. I said, why shouldn't you? You're not doing anything, you just told me that. You're doing nothing. What's the point in being? Why is there a church here? You're doing nothing. You just told me that. Well, I didn't mean we were doing nothing. I said, that's what you told me. Make yourself so valuable to the cause of Christ that God would ever let you die. You know something? I have very few successes, at least that I can find. That church is now one of our strongest supporters in West African missions, and they are doing things and doing without so that Tom and the Bossiana and the orphans can have. Heard about that, by the way. I'll tell you about that later. Honestly, folks, that's it. That's the reason. Tom has to deal, and Obasiama has to deal with men who would use the cause of Christ for their own purposes. For their own purposes. There's one guy there, and they just don't hide it as well as Americans do, but there's one guy there that keeps siphoning money away from the congregation where he is in Cameroon. Not where our men are, but siphon his money away so he can go to his own personal house for when he returns. In his own home village. You don't do that. You don't do that. You just don't do things like that. But we tend to. And we tend to think that God is concerned about the same things that we are. He's not. And it turns out God's right. Because even psychologists nowadays have found out that what makes a person happy is not what everybody assumes it is. And that the people who have those things will freely give them up. And they're not happy when they have them. They're not thrilled when they have them. We had a preacher back home, he's passed away now. He always used to say, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it.
Ain't it the bills, money can't buy love?
Yeah, and honestly, I've got a whole bunch of stories
Or
for this
respect?
that I'm not gonna get into, because there's so many, and they all mean the same thing. I think you can understand it in an illustration. The things that you think you want, or you think you need, could easily cost you everything. You know, it could easily cost you everything. I talked to two kids today, brother and sister. He said, I was out of school. I said, yeah, I remember Al. You missed a couple things, you have that stuff to make that be all right now. He said, I was in the car. He showed me a picture of the car that was upside down. Beautiful little car. Turns out it was the sister's car. I asked her, I said, what are you driving to school now? She said, the bus. Mom ain't gonna go out and buy another car. At one time, they thought they really wanted that, and it just almost killed her. He was going too fast on dirt road, hit a ditch, and flipped it. It almost killed that boy. And I'm wondering, I haven't talked to Mama yet, I know her too, but I haven't talked to Mama yet, I wonder what she says about it. I know what she said some pretty rough things when she got home with that boy, but when he got out of the hospital. I said, did they holler at you? He said, no, Mama and my sister, they hollered at me when I got out of the hospital. When I came home.
Well, that's like, let me check you out and see if you're okay. Okay, now I'm gonna kill you.
But the thing is, you be careful what you ask for. Folks, if you live your life, and I think that's what he's saying. If you live your life like everybody else in the world lives their life, you're gonna be just as miserable as they are. However, you live your life the way God tells you to do. You'll be happy. Look at what else he says. For what, and this is taken out of context, out of this context. For what good will it do a person if he gains the whole world but forfeits his soul? What will a person give in exchange for his soul?
Some people will sell it for a pot of stew.
Yeah. And I've seen us selling out for even less. You know?
I was gonna ask you the question about soul. Do you think that's how would you describe your soul? Is it your consciousness or
I think,
mental consciousness?
I think it's everything about a person that you don't see, you don't feel.
I mean, if you had
Okay.
to explain it to someone, how would you?
Let me say it in kind of a stupid way. Remember when Hollywood, they don't do it that much anymore, but when they turned out all those movies where two people would swap bodies,
Yeah, yeah.
remember those? It's what you swap.
You saying bodies or the?
No, it's what the inside is to swap.
Oh, okay.
It's the mind, it's the intellect, it's the memories, it's the beliefs.
They've done many studies to say it has weight.
Really?
This is
Now
a
that-
long
I
time,
remember
they've been
that.
doing that for a long time, I mean, like 30 years, but
Mhm.
they had them weighed,
Mhm.
and when they die, they're this much difference.
Well, it's the part beyond physical looks that makes us different people than anybody else. And not DNA, not cells, not things like that. But it's the sum total of the individual, the memories, the knowledge, the relationships, the beliefs, the trusts, the mistrusts, everything that seems to me to be sitting right behind your eyes. You know, that's,
The mirror for your soul.
yeah,
Well, see, some people consider your soul as like your heart or your brain,
not you.
because you think with your heart and you feel with your, feel with your
You
heart.
actually don't have anything to do with your heart. It's the other way around.
But when you're happy, your heart's happy.
Your
And
brain
when you're
makes it that way.
sad, your heart hurts.
Your brain makes it that way.
Mm.
It's really all, nobody really has known this until recently, in recent history. The Egyptians, when they would embalm an individual, they would just put the brain off to the side. But that's where all of your intellect and conscience and everything is. The part that makes you, your beliefs, your thing, everything except the physical. The part that makes you, you. And I hope the physical doesn't make any of us, you know. I'm afraid it does, at times. I think how people look makes a person in some cases. My doctor told me this. I had to go to a plastic surgeon one time with this. I was the only person that could, it was a hand surgeon. And have you ever been to one of those offices? That is the most different doctor office you've ever seen in your life. There's artwork and fountains and simmering potpourri everywhere, you know, like. And my doctor said, yeah, he said, that's the kind of doctor that you borrow thousands of dollars to go to if people do that. You know, and I guess it's when you get, say, my age and stuff, and things start heading south, and gravity is no longer our friend and stuff like that. It would say, I want to look better. Because that's what you are. Or the people that want the fancy cars and stuff because they want to be known by their physical possessions. I'm not just talking about cars, I'm not anything. Kids at school do it with clothes and shoes, and you know, I want to be known by my physical possessions. Now that is one of the bizarre income.
Well, like people that meet someone, today's me and Joe's anniversary of our first date, 37 years ago. Some people use the phrase, you are my soulmate.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt that way. But, you know, it's you know.
Would you be the same person without Joe?
Oh, Lord.
That's what the soulmate is.
I don't know. That could be wrong. Nah, he keeps me laughing.
Are you better together than you are apart? That would be a soulmate.
Okay, well,
I
I
would
guess he is.
And this comes from a romantic literature teacher. Shakespeare's sonnets and such.
Well, oil and water mixes, but then it separates, but then you can mix it back up again.
Yeah, it does actually mix and it will choke out an engine when you do it. Now, if you gain the whole world, if you get everything that the world thinks is so important, but you lose your own soul, what good does it do?
Well, maybe it means to give up what you believe in, your morals, to sacrifice what you believe.
Yeah, and I think even further than that, or even more simply than that, if you get everything you want in the world, but you go to hell, or everything you think you want in the world, because then we get into, well, as a Christian, I want this, that, and the other. Well, okay. But the things, worldly things that you want in the world, everything you want. I know we've all done it. I mean, you know,
Made a poor choice.
well, you know, here's a personal thing that everybody knows about, right? That when I picked up Donna from the hospital that last time, I was in that truck and had a blowout. Took me an hour and a half waiting on the side of Sherman Parkway for somebody to come and change it. I didn't have the piece of jacket you need to change Then the other morning, 2 mornings ago, I went to school and the other rear tire, some guy was nice enough to pull into I said, I want to let you know your tire's low, and one of the teachers said, yeah, you're right, it is. So I said, well, my planning block period, second period was there, and I'll take it up to Butler's. And I took it up there, and the guy at school took me back, and, you know, I was thinking at that time, you know, I wish I had something dependable to drive. You know, I wish, have you ever been, I don't know if anybody's ever been there, some people believe in trading cars every year, I can't afford that. But I want something that when I put the key in it and turns it, or now it's a button, I want it to start. I want it to get me from where I'm at to where I need to go without me having to worry about whether it's gonna make it.
You know Joe's love affair with his truck, Betty. Yeah, he will never let that truck go.
How many, he's not here, but how many times have y'all been stuck here?
Oh, man.
Wait, trying to get that
She goes-
restarted again?
She goes when she gets ready to go.
Alright.
So, yeah,
Oh,
but where we live at, you need good transportation because it's 30, 35 miles either direction to go anywhere. It's always been like that.
Well, one of the nicest vehicles I've ever ridden in. It was a diesel pickup truck.
Mm.
2 seats in the front, almost brand new. I think the guy bought it used. Don and I were riding it. He was a young guy. And he was talking about, I said, I like this truck. This is nice. Because I was thinking, you know, my poor old red car, which is now at Howard's, needing another engine in it. But
Mm.
I was thinking it's going to be, this is nice. I said, do you mind? And it was one of Taylor's boyfriends, so he had to answer all my questions. Do you mind telling me what you paid for? $65,000 used.
Wow.
I said, I called his name. I said, what's the payments on this thing every month? Pop it out. He told me. I told him, look, I have 2 rental houses, 2 brick homes in Statesboro that I rent out. The mortgages on both of those put together are not your truck payment. It's much less than your truck payment.
And if it gets in a wreck, it could be worthless in 2 seconds.
Well, you know, then, you know, when you talk to an individual like that, you think, you know, maybe I'm not so bad off sitting by the side of the road every now and then, you know? I'm able to do a whole lot of other things, but I'm not sitting beside the road, so maybe, you know. Plus, have you seen the thing I'm driving now? The big old jacked up pickup, white pickup? I mean, there are actually, when I go to school, there's people that pull off the road, rednecks that pull off the road and just stand outside and put their hand over their heart.
Well, that's what Donna says
I can-
about Betty.
I could
Yeah,
easily
people
be
got out
like
of
the
the way.
rednecks, you know, I'm kidding, nobody does that. That's what it looks like, you know, and the kids at school think, wow, that's cool, you know, because here I am driving way up in the sky, I have to climb into the thing. You know, it belonged to Donna's late uncle before he passed away. We wound up with it. Well, Donna bought it from her mom because what she had went south, and you know, so Donna wound up with it. So that's why we got it. And so, but it looks like, you know, and like, kids think it's wonderful. They always want to buy it. Yeah. Oh, you couldn't afford it. You know. But you know, I think maybe I'm better off without a lot of the things in this world. And I've met people who are very wealthy. I looked inside one of those villa things in Vegas for the high rollers. Wow. I mean, I said, wow, how much is this a night if you just want to rent it? He said $15,000
Oh, wow.
a night. Now look at the room we were staying in. It was, you know, this is just as nice. You know, because I'm sleeping in it. And when I'm asleep, I ain't gonna know where I'm at. You know? It's some of these things that everybody says are so important are not. Probably close here, but that Ray Stevens song just gets me. I used to love him because I first heard The Streak when I was a little kid in the single digits. And I love that song. I thought it was funny, maybe because it was a lady running around naked, you know, in that song, you know. And every little kid around 9 years old, they know that stuff. But there's not, so I started listening to Ray Stevens, and the guy he's absolute genius at what he does. He does sing, Everything is Beautiful in some way. I love that song too. He's kind of like Weird Al. I loved him too. You know, he made fun of songs, and this guy makes up silly songs.
He had a great way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
His viewpoint of the squirrel.
Yeah. Do Right Family. That was hilarious. But he had a song that it defines what we preachers need to be. And I think he meant it to be. Would Jesus wear a Rolex on his television show? Okay, I knew a Rolex was a very expensive watch.
Have you ever picked one up or
There's what I was
held
going to
one in your
say.
hand?
I went to in the Planet Hollywood Miracle Mile shops, there is an Armani place that I tried on a suit there. Okay, there's a Rolex place that I went and looked at. I picked one up, it was very heavy, and the watch was very nice. Okay, it was nice, and it worked. And if you looked at it, it would tell you the time, and it would keep perfect time. Okay. It was heavy, and there were fine metals in it, and I think a couple of diamonds here and there. So I asked the guy, because the price tags are not on them,
If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
$15,000.
Yeah.
And that was one of the cheaper ones they had.
I had a patient one time, and I knew the man who did it. They would tell you not to wear any jewelry, bring any expensive items. Don't make us responsible for something that you hold dear, you know. But Jack had on his Rolex watch. And I told him, I said, Jack, I said, you knew better than to wear this thing. I said, give it here, and I'll give it to your wife so she can take care of it. I said, I'm not going to be responsible for it. I picked up that thing and I thought I had a 5-pound weight or a 2-pound weight in my hand.
We walked down from the Rolex store, and there was a purse store. Now there was a store, and there was a kiosk that was enclosed. There were purses. There were shelves 3 high, this big, on the store and in the kiosk. Each of those shelves had one purse on it. I don't know how much they were, but inside the store were around 7 or 8 security guards, armed. And there were 2 in a little kiosk in the middle of the shopping center. Now, this may totally make people believe that I don't know anything, but I looked at the purses through the window. I've seen purses that look just as nice at Walmart.
A lot less than.
I don't know how much they were. I'm not going to even guess. But I'm sure they were pretty costly if you could pay that many armed security guards. And they only had like 2 salesmen in the store and 1 in the kiosk, but they had all kinds of armed security everywhere. And I thought to myself, how much is it worth for a lady to put her stuff in?
I only value my purse of how much money I have in it.
It doesn't include
That's the only value of my purse.
I've never carried a purse. I've carried a laptop bag a lot of times, you know, and I have one of those that I really like at school. It's got 2 pockets in it and a side pocket, and it says Bryan County Redskins on it, you know, and it puts my school laptop in it. It's handy. One of the best I've ever had. So I used it today. I had to go do common planning and had to take my laptop first with me. And it has my charger and my mouse and my keyboard in there because I can't stand using the touchpad thing. But,
Well, the purses though, you're talking about that, the difference is they use real materials. And, I have a purse because it was really popular when I was in high school.
mhm.
That's worth twice as much today as it was then.
Also, it's investment.
So,
Mhm.
you know, who wants to wait that long too, but,
Yeah, but,
you know, if you get a Rolex, you can buy things with it.
mhm.
You can buy land, you can buy property.
Yeah,
With a
it's good
Rolex?
collateral.
Oh, with the money that you spent for a Rolex.
No, people will take the Rolex,
You know, like,
that's payment.
Yeah,
Oh,
use
really?
it as collateral.
It's gold.
Well, kind of like investing in,
I mean, even if you dismantle the gold,
mhm.
the jewels don't matter, but the gold would, you could just dismantle it and melt the gold. But no kidding, you can pay people and buy property with
But I
a
think
Rolex.
material possessions, they alienate people from God in a hurry.
Well, here's the thing.
If they love them, if they just have them, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing.
Are you required if you have lots of money?
If you're a
Not to
preacher,
have these
and
things?
Yeah.
here's the
No.
line from the song that gets me about the Rolex.
Yeah, I thought that was
He's
really
asking,
a good
he's
song.
asking me for a 20 with 10,000 on his arm. You know,
But that's how he got that 10,000.
yeah, well, the thing is that something we should do with the money that people are giving to God? Is to buy. I can understand how a preacher would need a watch. I know a lot of preachers I've listened to that they looked at their watch a whole lot more. Now, honestly, my watch that I have is not a cheap
An amusement park.
one. I mean,
Several years ago, that's what they were building with Jim Baker.
yeah.
That was the donations was building his amusement park.
Yeah.
That was probably the Christmas.
And it would be a good idea if it was
Mine-
dedicated.
Mine is a Samsung Galaxy Watch. I can change the face on it with an app on my phone. It's just a computer screen, it's a touch screen. I can control my camera with it. It will keep track of my heart rate, and other things. And my sleep, if I can't wear it in my sleep, I just can't wear a watch in my sleep, but it'll keep track of all kinds of things. In fact, I have my heart rate 71. I walked 3.3 kilometers today. I've taken 4,502 steps. My doctor likes that. You can download that information to Samsung Health and I can email it to him.
Well, most people though like the uniqueness of it because it was new, because it can do all these things. And if you start loving those things and you start becoming addicted to every new thing, I do know people that get new phones.
Yeah.
Every time one turns out, they get new.
Yeah.
So it's your choice of drug.
I get the one I can afford when I come time for an upgrade, which Verizon doesn't do upgrades
Well,
anymore.
I hold them till they die.
Well,
You sound like me.
Me too.
you know, that's kind of what I did with the last one. But
But I mean, you know,
Honestly, that's
it's
not-
easy to say one person's thing, but
Yeah.
if you like it
that's
and
true.
you don't see the Rolex value, but you do see the digital value. I know people that really, really, really love digital stuff.
Yeah, I do.
And it's kind of a good thing in a way because it does a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
But tomorrow that thing may never work again.
But should you sacrifice?
Not give you life.
You see what I'm saying? Could you sacrifice even the spiritual for it?
I
Oh,
don't think the sacrifice for anything
Yeah.
is in the long run worth the value. Sometimes you get confused, I guess,
Mhm.
but,
I guess we all get confused, but I mean, you have
Sure.
to have some kind of anchor to draw you
Sure.
back.
And I guess the list of the things that we should and we shouldn't sacrifice would depend, I guess, on our personal
Well, it's like some
Well, I don't
people's,
know how people keep,
Preferences.
this has just been my experience since Jimmy died. Is, I mean, we have, I've learned stuff that I wish I had never had to learn.
Yeah.
Paying bills online and doing them over the phone.
Mhm.
And I mean, some days I think I'm
I
talking
have
to,
a portal
uh,
this week.
I'm talking to Osama bin Laden's daughter or his son on the phone.
I thought I'd never get a portal, the medical portal. I have to do all that online.
Yeah. Oh, you should have seen the papers the army sent. I mean,
No.
I filled out, I got so tired, I was on to pull my hair out.
It took 4 cars to get those papers.
I've got,
It took 4 cars. I had to cut down 4 cars to get those papers.
I had 3 portals for
This
the
is,
people at the house.
this week is the first time, and
I pay all my bills with online bill pay.
I can't say I love a portal.
I don't like it.
well,
What?
how, going back to, you
Yeah.
know, selling your soul, would a person be in tune to that? Or would they want to be in tune to that? Or are they totally in denial of that?
I think we probably need to be in
Well, the
tune.
scriptures tell us that we can't
Yeah.
rely on human thinking or human reasoning.
Well, I think humans in general can rationalize anything in their brain. You know, I know some people, they rationalize some crazy stuff, but you got Putin doing what he's doing. How can somebody in a rational brain think that's okay? You know, so,
I know a person that, that I've known him for a long time. And I mean, he thinks everything that he does is right.
right? Yeah.
And I mean, but he's a racist.
Mhm.
And I mean, he has no interest in the church. I mean, he's been a member of the church for 50 years or longer. But he has no interest in, except for causing trouble. And I mean,
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
I've met
saying,
him
so
before.
you
Many
have,
times,
um,
different places I met him. Many times.
How do they know when they get to the point of actually selling their soul?
right, exactly, yeah. Are
Well,
you
you
aware?
That's what she's saying.
Yeah.
People have rationalized that. And, you know, it's like I said when we first started looking at this verse, which is probably ought to be real quick, but every time I hear this preached on, it's almost explained away.
Well, I always
And God
think,
doesn't really mean it, you know?
yeah,
well, when it says.
It's okay if you do a little bit, you know?
but it's like my daughter says, that God says this, and he doesn't change his mind about it.
Well, I always think of money when it says sell your soul.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Tangible money,
that's,
but it could be anything,
it could be anything worldly,
right?
anything tangible or anything of worldly value. And then, but it seems like every time we talk about it in church, it's not good. And I think I was guilty of that myself, because I brought up some things that weren't that important to me.
When you sum it up.
Now that I look back at it, you know, I brought up some things that weren't that important to me, but what about the things that are important to me? I mean, a nice car is not that important to me, and a Rolex is certainly not, but I think you bring up a good point, it is to other people.
Well, I look back at David, and my goodness, the man made lots of mistakes, but he was after God's own heart, which meant that he acquired riches, he acquired ladies, he acquired everything,
Well, he doesn't.
but he was after his heart, which meant that he always was wanting to do what God would want and do himself.
And that's probably what
So
it is.
it should be the same with us, not in relation to riches or, you know, it's easy for different peoples to look different ways, but if I don't always think I want to do what God would do or would want me to do or things like that.
I told Samuel when he went to
Samuel,
choose this individual, Samuel had to go through 6 boys that God didn't approve of before they found out. And they said, well, where is he? And his father said, or Samuel asked him, do you have any more children? they just literally forgot about David out there with the sheep and the goats, you know?
He was a little fella.
Mhm.
But, Saul was not. He always was looking after his kingdom, his
Mhm.
kingship, his people that were going to inherit from him and stuff. Not that he didn't love them,
But,
but so it's sort of like, how do you know where a soul is? How do you control what you think? And the more you do,
It looks like it's a matter of intentions. You know,
thank God it's not
Yes.
left up to us to
why
judge.
am I doing this or why am I getting this? All right, what's your invitation, son? What? 21. The moment we,
I'm sorry, 19.
Yeah, you would have thought
those
David.
are completely different numbers.
Well, they're prime numbers, so we're still good.
well, he
No, they're
really always.
Well, you're right, 21 is even number, 19 is a prime number.
I was about to say, well, yeah, but then I thought, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
it's the
19 is.
19 is.
Although the value of prime numbers is really the same.
Be that my father-in-law used to have this big thing. was prime.
All right, we'll sing one verse of number 21, Stand in Need, respond to the Lord's invitation here or at home electronically. Please do so as together we stand as we sing.
Come to Jesus,
He will save you, though your sins are crimson glow. If you give your heart to Jesus, He will make it white as snow. Come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come today. Come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come today. Almighty God and Father of all, we thank you this day and all its many blessings. We hope, Father, that our Bible studies are profitable to us and also to you. Please continue to care for us and guide and direct us throughout this life. And please help those in Ukraine. Please grant them safety and security. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right. Let's see. We've got absolutely nothing except for our meeting coming up Sunday. Then.
Something for you.
Oh, you brought me some hot
I
sauce.
thought you some hot sauce.
From Texas. I had last night.
Yeah. 2 bottles of it. If you like it, I'll get you some more when I go back.
Okay. Well, we can go back.
Kelly's birthday is Sunday.
You don't have that in bulletin, so if he's here,
I hope.
How
me
old?
again. 'Cause I'm old.
How old is he?
He'll be 17.
Oh, wow. Okay, I thought he was a video.
One more year as a juvenile.
He's so tall.
He should remember that.
Getting taller.
Yeah.
You walked by me the other day?
Well, his goal is to be as tall as his dad. I think all of them were aiming for that.
Is there anything else we can talk about? It's too early to start talking about Super Sunday. It's like 4 weeks away, so don't worry about that.
I couldn't find, and this is just for me, I couldn't find the property. Me and Addie left church and went down there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little place somewhere, but it's
Oh,
not
here?
even half an acre yet.
I don't know how big it is. There's a big warehouse in the back of it. Big blue warehouse ring.
What interest? There was no for sale sign.
They must take it down.
Maybe it's something about it.
And there's a double wide right there.
But you
on the
can't see
property
it, right?
Behind some trees. But you can see the warehouse. Uh-huh.
We did, we drove by. I told her I'd already been by twice and couldn't see it.
It's there. I mean, he wanted $100,000 to open night school for it. I almost thought about it.
Well, the property that I saw on Zillow was really small.
Uh-huh. I
I
don't
mean,
know if he's
seriously
If it was
small.
for sale by owner.
So if
I
it was
doubt
$100,000, that would be a crazy amount for a third of an acre.
it. Well, considering
In Illabelle at that.
that Ella Bell's $15,000 an acre.
Well, but that's not 100,000.
No.
So I
You're
just was
right.
trying again. Yeah, look and see. See you later, lady.
Oh,
Good to see y'all.
Glad you're here.
Come on now.
Back safe.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Did you have a good
I had some
time?
good men in the left-hand seat.
Did you have a good time though?
I did.
Excellent.
My daughter and I, we had a good time. And the
That's
dogs
always
and the
good.
cat, the dog and the cat.